Ajahn, a young mother is on the path to face with life, and if the marriage broken down, we know that there is a way that they practice meditation to get on the path to get rid of suffering. But if they are in the turmoil of family breaking down, what can we do to help a young mother with the family broken down?
Is this someone you know?
My daughter is Ajahn.
Begin by teaching her chanting, Buddhist chanting that she can do regularly. Have to teach her to contemplate the suffering that she might be experiencing in her life at the moment. Use her intelligence, her faculties to contemplate it in light of the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha taught. That all of us, when we're born into the world, we have to experience different kinds of suffering. It's part of human existence. And to see that there is a way out of suffering, it comes through the practice of the teachings and the following the path. So help to explain to her what the path is. We have the practice of dhamma, generosity, keeping of precepts and living in a moral life, a moral way, development of mindfulness, meditation and wisdom that arises from that. Try and explain to her to see this is the correct way to deal with suffering when we experience suffering in life.
Would be bringing her to meet Ajahn to stimulate or at least to do up the belief, because with the ordinary person, mother like me, I may not have enough to be trust or belief in her to get her into practicing. Meeting Ajahn may be the best opportunity for her to get onto the path of get rid of suffering.
Of course, yes, it'd be a good thing if she has the time, bring her up and she can listen to some of his Dhamma teaching.
Is there a chant or something we could do to ask in the rain?
There are chants that you can do and special gathas, verses for encouraging rain. The important thing though, your mind has to be very focused, very concentrated with samadhi for it to really work.
I get that first.
But there's no harm in trying out chanting these things.
Okay.
I'm not sure we have an English translation. We have there's a Thai chanting book that has the rain chant, but I'm not sure we have an English translation. I'll have to look into it for you. He knew one monk who lived on a mountain, and they were really desperate for water. It was in a drought period, and being a mountain, all the water flows down below, so there was not much on the mountain, and the monks were having difficulty living there. So this monk went out into the open, like sort of an open space where there's no trees, and did a lot of chanting right out in the hot sun. And strangely enough, in a few days it rained. So you never know, sometimes these things work. Chanting, you have to do it repetitively, like 9 times. It's a good number to do every day for you. So 9 times a day for 9 days, something like that. Really make it firm. He was just saying 2 years ago in his province, it's a fruit growing province in Thailand, a very famous fruit growing area, and they had a bad drought, all the dams were empty, and that's really affects the economy of the province there. So the water authorities, the governor of the province, they're all kind of like desperate, nothing they can do. So in the end, after all the kind of normal things they could do had been done, they invited all the monks in the province to come together at 3 o'clock one afternoon, right out in the hot sun, and chant. And they chanted the Paritta chanting, which is the normal chants we do on auspicious occasions. And eventually the rain came and saved them that year. It did seem to work. So, do you know any of the Paritta chants? No. Maybe better you could show him the Parittas. Do a few. Ajahn said, Asavana, it's a very auspicious chant. Asavana Chabalana. That's how it starts, Asavana Chabalana. Best of all is chant outside. Chant outside, in the garden somewhere, not in the house, actually go outside and chant. have more effect.
In the heat? In the sun?
Could maybe wait until late in the day when things are cooling down a bit. You've got to get the devas having sympathy for you, help. It says we should contemplate these things as it's, say, the external problems of the world that we're experiencing, like climate change, environmental problems. It seems quite obvious that as the world changes, we get more people. People use the resources more and they affect the world in different ways, so the effects are seen in the kinds of things we're experiencing. Some places have flooding, some places have drought, but it's just the changing of the world over time and the increase in the number of people. And you can also compare that with an individual person, how when our own internal mechanisms, organism of the body start to change with age and with different conditions, then we can have imbalances come up, and then we call that illness. And in the end, our bodies are gradually getting older and degenerating. Same with the world as a whole. The world is as it gets older and we use up more resources, there's more people, then it is degenerating as well. And we should contemplate to see, well, this is the normal way of things. We have to see that when we say the world is developing, and we have material development, prosperity, that is only on the material level, and generally on the level of people's minds there's actually a lot of darkness coming as well, misunderstanding or increased, say, attachments, greed and different unwholesome states of mind. The word in Pali is loko. Loko also means darkness as well as the world. And it's an old saying in Buddhism, the world develops, so the darkness of the world develops with it if we're not careful. And you can see many of the old practices that come from Buddhism, they're pointing out the dangers and the need to be careful of the environment. For instance, say like in Thailand there's a famous festival, the water festival, at the end of the 3 months rains retreat. It probably comes partly from the awareness of the need to respect water as a resource. And there's a water deva, an angel that looks after the water, and when people make offerings to that goddess or that god after during that ceremony. But it probably also comes from that awareness of the need to be careful of water. Or some of the monks' rules in the Buddhist monasteries, they have rules about looking after the water, looking after the trees, not to cut trees down. And again, many of the Buddha's teachings actually pointing out the need to be careful of the environment and sensitive to it. But nowadays often these things get forgotten, and we carry on developing the world and forget about the need to be careful. It's likely that future generations are going to face much more problems than us, because the numbers of people will go up, the number of resources used will be more, so there'll be more competition and more stress, and the strain on the world and its resources will be seen. Of course, it's not just a modern experience that we sometimes have imbalances in the world, in weather, we have droughts, we have flooding. It has been here always in different forms, and even in the history of the Buddha's lifetime, there was one famous incident where there were two rival clans of people fighting over the river, Rohini River. They both wanted to use the water for irrigation and for feeding their populations, and they went to war over it. They drew up their armies and they were about to fight, and the Buddha went out to actually teach them to stop fighting over it. The question was for lay people how to deal with this problem that the world is developing materially all the time, and yet we have to live in the world, and how to deal with that so that we're not maybe contributing to it in an unnecessary way, but how to live in the world skillfully. And Ajahn is advising that the Buddhist teachings emphasize that on different levels. They emphasize, one, we have to be practical in that we have to live in the world, so it's not like we can't consume anything or we can't have anything to do with the material world. We do have to be involved with the material world all the time and use various resources for our life, but we have to learn, one, how to be moderate in and know the right amount, the right balance for the amount of things that we're using, according to the situation we're in, our living standards and our our income, these kind of things. We have to see what is the right amount, what is a moderate amount for our use, for our consumption. But at the same time, on a deeper level, you also have to contemplate to see that ultimately material things can't give you true peace, true happiness, or they're not going to solve all your problems. The important thing is also to practice on the mind, on the spiritual level. You have to learn to develop meditation, develop mindfulness and wisdom to bring your mind to peace. And the more you do that, the more you'll see the role of the material world. You'll have that in perspective, and you won't get lost in it. You won't use so many material things or think that they'll be able to solve all your happiness. You'll realize the real happiness comes from developing spiritual qualities inside and following the Buddhist path.
Ajahn, we are living in this real world that we are surrounded with normal people, but we always pay respect and look up to the Sangha, the monks. And when we hear something like an abbot have to face with criminal charge about a very serious charge like rape, how would we understand? Is that karma, or is that something that, even though the monk has more than 40-50 years of practicing, how would you explain to us so that we can understand that our way to reach a level of purity or no karma is a long way? Because we always look up to these people, and if these people still facing the thing like that, how would we think?
You have to understand that when people come into the Sangha, ordain in the Sangha as monks, they're coming from everyone, just the general public, and they might have faith and interest to practice, but they also come in with their own karmic accumulations, their own mental defilements, just as we all have. Anyone beginning the practice has to begin like that. And as monks practice, they come into the robes. There are many different situations they'll be in. Some monks are maybe in the city, some are in more quiet places, but many of them might still have to face with what you might call very normal situations, where they're meeting people, they're getting involved with the world in many different ways. So there's always a danger that worldly moods, worldly defilements, attachments can come up like that. And even though maybe some monks have a very pure, or most monks have a very pure wish to pursue the path to reach purity of mind and true spiritual freedom and peace, some along their way they might lose their way. They might get caught up in these more worldly attachments, worldly moods. The important thing is, if that happens and they end up making mistakes and doing things in the wrong way, then there are processes for dealing with that. Say in the Sangha themselves, they have a process to separate that monk out. He has to give up being a monk, has to separate them out, so that the whole religion, the whole Sangha and the faith of the laity isn't ruined by, say, one individual. The Buddha gave the simile that if you have a lot of rice, you've harvested your rice and you have all the rice there, you might have one or two rice seeds that are gone off. You always have to take them out. If you leave them there, then they'll start to affect the whole sack of rice and it will all go mouldy or all go off, so you always take them out. It's the same with individuals. If they lose their way and get caught up in worldly moods and behave in improper ways, then you have to separate them off from the Sangha, because obviously there'll be still plenty of genuine good practitioners that you have to protect, and the faith of the laity. The ones that you have to separate off, if they've done that, they've made those mistakes, then you have to contemplate, well, this is their karma, and they'll have to receive the fruits of that, the suffering and the problems that will arise from the mistakes, whatever improper behaviour they've done. But to contemplate, to see that this is in the sense that there's going to be things like this sometimes, because we're all coming from the same place. We all start off with ignorance, with defilements, and the important thing is to protect the religion as a whole. Support what we say the good monks and the good people of the religion, to really support them, and you'll get to know them, because as you practice, if you are weeding, the Sangha is weeding out the bad monks, and we're weeding out the bad monks, we'll get to know who the good monks are, then we can support them, practice with them, hear the teachings from them. Just saying, we should remember with this, to contemplate that when people come into the Sangha to ordain as monks, that first of all, they're just, we say monks in the conventional sense, they just put on the robe, shaving their heads, but the mind might not yet be the mind of a monk or someone who's pure. And when the Sangha acknowledges this, so they have many processes and guidelines in place to try and filter the candidates who come into the Sangha for, particularly in Thailand, the Upachara, the preceptor, will try to make sure that the candidates who come to ordination are suitable. They've had some training, they're appropriate candidates for ordination. But of course there are many upacharas. The Sangha is very big, so some are perhaps looser than others, and the loose ones can then maybe let in candidates who aren't so suitable. And these candidates, they might begin with a pure intention, come into the Sangha, but over time their kilesas, defilements might take over their mind, and then they can make mistakes. But we also have to remember that that's the way of people, isn't it? You're not going to get everyone perfect from the beginning and perfect right through. You'll have different calibers of people, different abilities, different levels of ability. Just say like in an exam, so you have an exam in a university or something, some people will fail the exam, some people will pass, but they'll only pass with just a few percent. Some people will pass with an average range score, some people pass with the best score. You never get everyone with exactly the same score, and so monks or Sangha members will be like that. There will be some who are doing very well, progressing very far, some will be struggling more. But the Sangha normally has in place different processes to deal with them if say that a monk falls into inappropriate behaviour. Then the monks come together, they have a meeting, and they, as we explained before, they'll sort that monk out, maybe take them out of the Sangha, they'll have to leave the Sangha. But the difference, say nowadays, is that of course, particularly in Thailand, the media is very fast. As soon as there's some news of somebody doing something wrong, the media will spread that news very fast, and then the process is maybe interrupted, or people's faith is already damaged before the thing is being investigated or not, before a conclusion has been reached. And often people will tend to judge the whole Sangha on one media issue, because that's the way people are. They tend to just pick on one thing, and you say in Thailand, to put in scandalous news about monks and things, people will love to do it, they'll do it straight away, but to put in news about a good monk doing good, they won't do it unless you pay them. And that's the way people's minds are. They tend to focus on the negative and then they spread it, and so many people's faith gets damaged by that. And we have to try and look deeper than this, and see, don't put all your faith in the individual person, but put it in the teachings, the Buddha, the teachings, and the Sangha as an institution, so that if one monk does fail and ends up disrobing, you don't lose all your faith because of that, because there's still many good monks and much good being done in Buddhism. But people tend to focus on the negative more, and they forget the good. We have to be careful not to get lost like that, because it will damage our own faith. You have to see that there's many different areas of our life where the same is true. So you say, just look in a big family, you say a family with quite a few children. It's not that each child will be successful and happy and prosperous. Different children might have different experiences, some might do better than others, and that's the normal way of any group of human beings. One has to learn how to contemplate like this, so that oneself doesn't get caught into suffering with the ups and downs of other people and their good and bad karma. If you can contemplate like this, then you can keep your faith, and you can see that if one individual does practice wrongly, makes mistakes, That doesn't mean to say the whole teachings of the whole of Buddhism is wrong or bad. One shouldn't lose one's faith in Buddhism. One should just say, well, that one individual has made mistakes.
I would like to ask about the same contact. I've been practicing meditation for quite a few time. So when the same contact with the same object, we've been attaching to the name, the label for a long time. So when the same and the same object contact, and we attach it, and when the attachment will come, so we should let it go, or should we watch it go up and then it go away, or what should we do?
As you say, it's correct. The correct way of practice is always to bring up mindfulness when there is sense contact. And keep training in that, developing continuous mindfulness. And the more continuous our mindfulness is, the firmer our mind will be. This will give us the chance to contemplate the sense contact we have and to see it that it's anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's impermanent, it's unsatisfactory, it's not self. When you see any aspect of anicca, dukkha, anatta, you can let go of all the reactions and the sense of self or the attachment that comes with sense contact. So your practice is always to build up more mindfulness, more continuous mindfulness, and make your mind really firm so you can see these truths clearly. You'll see when mindfulness is weak and the mind is not very clear, then of course we can't see that. Then that's when this sense of self starts to form, we become attached, and then we end up suffering. So keep practicing developing the mindfulness at that point of sense contact. How many years have you been meditating, he asks?
Actually, because I follow different methods, if counting years, it's been about 30 years, but because I'm practicing only a couple of hours a day with different methods, different, you may say that different aim of the dhamma, but I just change to practicing according to the Buddha teaching a year or more than about a year, just around 2 years, but I've been studying Buddha Sutta for quite a period of time, and I realized that the other method is not according to the Buddha teaching, so I just switch off to different method, and within 2 years I'm practicing to the method of the Buddha teaching, that's anapanasati. And because when I realized that, and I switched into anapanasati, I practice more than before, and then I realized that it doesn't matter how many meditation sessions you practice a day, after you get off the meditation sitting, and when the same contact, and you can't get out the same contact is arising in your feeling, and then it damages the peace you've been achieved or accumulate during meditation session. So, and it's very hard for the life, for the household life, is always faced with the same contact because you have to work and the environment is different. So I know that man living at man is got different situation, environment, and have to face the same contact as well. But like people, it seems more difficult to control or to see that the feeling right or not right or neutral. So it's very hard. So I wonder that the same contact, if you can find peace in the same contact, it will contribute a big portion in establishing somebody.
You have to understand that the way the mind develops in the practice, it has to be a gradual development. It takes time, we have to be patient, but we have to keep putting in the efforts like you've been describing. What you do, you practice, and you'll find as you keep putting effort into your meditation, sometimes that meditation, even though you feel like you do your meditation, then when you leave your meditation seat, you might have been very peaceful, had a lot of happiness, but then it all seems to go away again as you get sense contact. you'll find sometimes it will come up, say in the middle of your day when you're not formally meditating like this, but you're just doing your work, you'll still have some mindfulness come back, and you'll feel you have enough mindfulness to deal with the sense contact. When you experience that, then you'll see that's the result of the meditation you did earlier, say in the day, and all the different meditation you've done in your life. And then also, those moments that you have mindfulness arise in your daily life, that will also mean that when you come to sit meditation again, maybe later in the day, you'll find it's easier to become peaceful and concentrated, because the moments of mindfulness in your daily life are increasing. But you have to give this time, keep putting the effort in, you'll find your mindfulness does gradually increase over time. He also said what you should do is, when you do find your mind is calm, then also contemplate anicca, dukkha, anatta, not only of sense contact, but any aspect of our physical body. Contemplate to see the nature of this body in the material world, it's anicca, it's dukkha, anatta. This will be giving rise to insight, to wisdom and understanding. This understanding will also help to bring up more mindfulness, more states of peace, because it stops us getting too attached to the world. It's worried that it's late, maybe you have to get